Happy July 5th. Did you have a lot of noise last night in your neighborhood? Oh, yeah. Were you happy about it? For those who don't know me, I'm Reverend Alan Hicks. I'll be your presider and celebrant today. Rachel is out of town still. She's coming back, I believe, on Monday, tomorrow. She's been in Belfast at some conference over there, important stuff, so she probably has some good stories when she gets back. I do not have a lot of announcements. This is kind of a special service today, celebrating the 4th, which was yesterday, and we have some special music we'll be finishing up today. That'll be pretty good. So, David Spring, do you have any announcement for the congregation?
Next Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. is Eddie Beard's funeral service and reception. 2 o'clock on the 12th. 11. Next Saturday. Okay.
Okay. So I do have some birthdays and anniversaries this week. Birthday list. Lorraine Dettell, Lawrence Sylvester, Jeffrey Wheeler, Gary McLean, Ian Crosby, Julian Weiss, Francisco Bibiano. Any of those folks here? We will still pray for them. On your laminated sheet, your second prayer down, birthday prayer. Let us pray. Watch over your children, O Lord, as their days increase. Bless and guide them wherever they need. Strengthen them when they stand. Comfort them when discouraged or sorrowful. Raise them up if they fall. And in their hearts may your peace, which passes all understanding, abide all the days of their lives. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I have one couple listed for anniversary, Nicholas Fuchs and Brandon Ainsworth. I don't see them here either. We go back to our laminated sheet, our third prayer down, anniversary prayer. Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for consecrating the union of this couple in the name of your Christ. By the power of your Holy Spirit, pour out the abundance of your blessing upon them. Defend them from every enemy. Lead them into all peace. Let their love for each other be a seal upon their hearts, a mantle about their shoulders, and a crown upon their foreheads. Bless them in their word and in their companionship, in their sleeping and in their waking, in their joys and in their sorrows, in their life and in their death. Amen. Let's take a moment to calm our hearts and our minds as we prepare for our service. Thank you. Blessed be God, our Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Let us pray. O God, you have taught us to keep all your commandments by loving you and our neighbor. Grant us the grace of your Holy Spirit, that we may be devoted to you with our whole heart and united to one another with pure affection. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. Please be seated.
A reading from the prophet Zechariah. Rejoice greatly, O daughter Zion, shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem, lo, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. He will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem. And the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall command peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea, and from river to the ends of the earth. As for you also, because of the blood of my covenant with you, I will set your prisoners free from the waterless pit. Return to your stronghold, O prisoners of hope. Today I declare that I will restore to you double. Hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people.
Thanks be to God.
A reading from the letter of Paul to the Christian community in Rome. I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree that the law is good. But in fact, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwells within me. For I know that nothing good dwells within me, that is in my flesh. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do. Now, if I do what I do not want, it is no longer that I do it, but sin that dwells within me. So I find it to be a law that when I want to do what is good, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inmost self, but I see in my members another law at war within the law of my mind, making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. Wretched man that I am, who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people.
The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Matthew. Jesus said, "To what will I compare this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling to one another. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We wailed, and you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking. And they say, 'He has a demon.' The Son of Man came eating and drinking. And they say, 'Look, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.' Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds." And at that time Jesus said, "I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the intelligent and have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ.
Our God of grace and mercy and benevolence, please be with us today as we worship together, celebrating the birth of our country. In Christ's name, amen. This is a very special day for us, for our congregation, for our city, and for our nation. Yesterday, July 4th, 2026, we, as a nation, celebrated the 250th anniversary of the birth of our nation, when our forefathers declared our independence as a new nation. My sermon today will be probably a little bit of a different flavor from what you might expect to hear on a Sunday morning. But after all, a 250th birthday celebration doesn't happen that often. In the history of the world, 250 years is not even a drop in the bucket, not even a blink of an eye. But to us mortal people walking around right now, it's a pretty momentous occasion. So, as it was written in Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands that have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to that separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is not every day or every year, or some people never, that most of us take time to read the whole written document that is the Declaration of Independence. But we should take that time to read and ponder these profound words that were written 250 years ago by the Second Continental Congress. Honestly, it doesn't take that long, maybe 10 minutes total, to read the words, and only then do you really begin to get a glimpse of the depth of the grandeur penned by those writers. Now, the first basic paragraph gives a summation of the state of affairs regarding the relationships between the 13 colonies/states in regards to their dealings with Great Britain and the King of England, and how those relationships continually deteriorated over time. Then it's listed as examples 27 specific instances or injustices inflicted upon the colonies. The next couple of paragraphs speak of how those grievances were submitted repeatedly to the Crown and were ignored or made worse by retribution. Tyrants live on retribution to keep the people intimidated and wary, as you well know. In the last sentence of this document, it states, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." It was then undersigned by 55 of our founding fathers, an act that would be considered treasonous and could result in a death sentence if they were ever rounded up or caught. What we have here is a group of peoples or colonies, states, who've decided that enough is enough. They had endured escalating hardships and atrocities from their supposed motherland for almost 150 years since the Pilgrims first arrived in 1620. They finally determined that there's really no recourse or reasonable accommodation that would be coming from the Crown, and only then did they write the Declaration of Independence, signaling a reasoned and inevitable decision to separate from British rule. Now, that is a very brief telling of the why of the Declaration of Independence. And you know what happened next: war, the American Revolution, this country's war with Great Britain for our independence. Hard fought, but the Americans won. And here we are 250 years later, all the problems solved, greatest nation the world has ever seen, streets paved with gold, everyone is rich and famous. What? Not your neighborhood? That's not our world. Okay, but let's talk honestly and with eyes wide open about our country and our history. We are a great nation. And yes, even with all of our warts and blemishes, the rest of the world does envy us and our potential for doing good and for being good. Our people are good people, and the vast majority would give you the shirts off your back if you needed it. Historically, we've been a generous people, willing to help out the world whenever there has been a need. We fought a world war this past century, and when our totally defeated enemies were facing starvation and annihilation, we gave them food and supplies and medicines by the tons so that they might survive and live. Our nation became the great superpower of the world after World War II. In the past 85 years, our country is the one that other nations of the world have counted on for help, to give aid and assistance, to find cures, and to curb growing pandemics. They could depend on us to help them defend themselves from other aggressor nations around the world. Traditionally, why do other countries look upon us with such favor and envy? It's because of the way our country was constituted, and that's no pun intended. Our forefathers wanted our nation to be the one where the people determined how we would be governed and by whom. We vote in our leaders and our legislative representatives. We, the people, have a most direct say into whom we look to for leadership, for clarity, for vision, and for whom we want to help us steer our country into the future. Sometimes it can be kind of a hit and miss proposition when we vote people in. When we have missed, we got the likes of, say, James Buchanan, whose ineptitude directly led to the inception of the Civil War. You got Andrew Johnson, the direct successor to Abraham Lincoln, who was criticized for obstructing Reconstruction after the Civil War. He vetoed civil rights legislation for formerly enslaved people. He pardoned ex-Confederate leaders, and Robert E. Lee was a traitor. He was not a great human being, and violated the Tenure of Office Act, leading to his impeachment. His policies set back American race relations for decades. How about Warren G. Harding? He presided over a corrupt administration marked by scandals such as the Teapot Dome affair. While not personally implicated in all the wrongdoings, his presidency is remembered for cronyism, bribery, and weak leadership. Sure glad we don't have that to worry about. How about some of the home runs we hit? There are many more of them than there are the losers. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and my favorite is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Washington consistently appear at the list of all top presidents because of their profound impact on the nation and their leadership during critical periods of American history. Other presidents like Theodore Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson also hold high esteemed places for their contributions to the country's development and for their values. These are the quality of leaders that inspire and push or pull our country to greatness because they knew what we as a nation are capable of. But, and he knew there was going to be a but, from the very beginning of our nation, there has been a pernicious evil, a cancer, slowly but inexorably spreading and metastasizing through the land, especially in the South. The belief by many people that it is okay to kidnap and bring to this country and forever enslave another human being for that new owner's benefit, that it was just and honorable. Human trafficking and enslavement of people of African descent was accepted and condoned for hundreds of years. People tried to justify it by saying the Bible listed people who were enslaved and held for lifetimes, but that does not make it right or legitimate. There is never a time when slavery is acceptable. Never. The justification of the slave owners was that these people weren't equal to the white folk. They were less than, almost subhuman, so it was okay to own some. You were doing them a favor. This pernicious evil took hold, has been the bane of humanity since the beginning of time. Now, this is that pernicious evil. It is that feeling of superiority that one person or one group of people have, that they are inherently better than another person or another group of people. That feeling of being blessed by God for being better than everyone else. It is those thoughts and feelings that give people the right to own another person. It is believing that you have the right to tell other people what they are to believe, who they are to love, and what they can do with their own bodies. It is dictating to others where they should live, how much education they should have or should not have. It is right being able to tell others where they can sit on the bus, what water fountain they can drink from, what swimming pool they can use, and whether they can vote or not. It is the right to terrorize and intimidate or lynch whomever has stepped out of their place. It is the right to make sure that generation after generation after generation never makes enough money to raise themselves or their family out of the generational poverty cycle. It is the right to put all of our brown friends in concentration camps months on end without representation or hope because they are brown. Throughout our history, waves of this revulsive behavior has ravaged our country because some people think that they are better than others just for the color of their skin, or because of their sexual orientation, or because of their religion or their faith. The slavery issue, in all of its residual ramifications in this country, has endured, all stems from this perverted sense of superiority ingrained in so many of our sorely misguided citizens. People, they are wrong. They've always been wrong, and they will always be wrong. Our country has gone through waves of normalcy, trauma, transition, death, and rebirth. We were reborn after the Civil War and are still fighting the demons that caused that war. We fought in 2 world wars in 1 century, and we had to adjust, transition, and be reborn after each one, reestablishing who we are. We went through another cultural revolution in the 1960s when all authority was questioned and the trust of our government was destroyed. We passed the Civil Rights and Voting Act in the 60s, a full 100 years after the Civil War. And there are people in today's government trying to destroy all the vestiges of those hard-fought rights. That pernicious cancer is still alive and well in parts of this country. But, and this is how it relates to us, this is what the Paschal Mystery is all about. Paschal Mystery is not just a story we emphasize 1 week each year, referring to it periodically during the months, but rather an ongoing reality if we will embrace it. The Paschal Mystery is a process of transformation with which we are given both new life and new spirit. It begins by letting go, the death of something we once clung to, moves on to that which might be new to us, releasing that old, and adjusting to that new perspective, and finally accepting the new and being transformed into a new spiritual awareness. This is what Jesus was trying to tell us to do with his life, his teachings, his death, and his resurrection. And this is what our country goes through as it addresses these hard issues. It is shedding those old, outdated thoughts and prejudices and bigotry and biases. Our country has gone through this before, and we're in the process of getting ready to go through it again. Regardless of the convicted felon we have in this White House and all the blatant corruption of our federal government and Supreme Court and his family, this too shall pass. We are the greatest nation this country has ever known, this world has ever known. We will again become the beacon that all nations aspire to. We will again be the nation that all our neighbors and allies can depend on. We will again uphold the rights of the downtrodden and lift those up who need a helping hand. All people should have access to a decent, affordable medical care. Our veterans and the elderly should not fear that they will be forgotten or left behind. Corporations are not people and should never have the rights of any of our common citizens. Everyone should have the right to a decent living wage. When 3% of the people own 90% of the wealth in this country, then something is wrong. Our people are good, our nation is good. Good times are coming. God's creation, and divine providence is mentioned explicitly in the Declaration of Independence. We look to God for guidance, protection, and inspiration. Always have, and we always will. But there is not a single path to God. Each person gets to decide for themselves what works for them. This is not a Christian nation. This is a nation who decided from the very beginning that a separation of church and state was necessary, not to restrict you from worshiping, but rather to allow you to worship your God as you wish. It is freedom, it is not restriction. Now, I know that this is a rather lengthy sermon from what I usually do, my standards, but I want to encourage you, to reassure you that our future is bright. We have such good people throughout. We will be reborn again, bigger, better, and with eyes wide open to the possibilities that God puts in front of us. So I say, God bless you, and God bless this country. Amen. Please stand as able in body or spirit for the creed of our faith and the prayers of our people. We believe in one God,
God, who calls us to work beside you in the fields of creation, help us to cultivate the human heart and the world around us through the promise of your love, through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers for the church throughout the world, for Sean, our presiding bishop, Phil, our bishop, Rachel, Alan, and Pat, our clergy, and for all who serve the church. Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers for this congregation, that we embody the love and ministry of Christ, that we grow in commitment, compassion, and courage, that we would be a living sanctuary for all people. Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers for this nation, for prudence in our public servants, for truth and clarity from our leadership, for civility among all people, for an appreciation of both civil liberties and social responsibilities. Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers for all those throughout the world who experience violence, inequality, injustice, or oppression of the human spirit, that the choices we make as a global and community neighbors may serve to help alleviate human suffering and support the diversity that you have made. Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers for all of creation, for the wisdom to live with respect and appreciation for all our relations, and for those who truly serve as stewards of your creation. Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers for those living with chronic illness, for those known to us who are ill or facing challenges of body, mind, or spirit, especially those we name now.
Excellent, Julie.
Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers for the departed, for all those known to us whom we love but see no longer, especially those we name now. Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask. I ask your prayers of thanksgiving for the verdant life on earth, for the loving friendships that sustain us in this life, for the spirit that sustains and inspires us, and for any special thanksgivings and blessings we name now. Through the faithful stewardship of Christ, we ask.
Gracious Creator, you know our needs before we ask, and give us more than we know to seek. Grant us the strength and courage to cultivate our lives and your creation in ways that bring greater healing and hope to the world, that we might realize ourselves and the world that you call us to be as those committed through our baptismal covenant to serve within the faithful stewardship of Christ. Let us confess our sins against God and our neighbor. God of all mercy, we confess we sin against you. Almighty God, have mercy on you, forgive you all of your sins through our Lord Jesus Christ, strengthen you in all goodness, and by the power of the Holy Spirit, keep you in eternal life. Amen. The peace of God be always with you. Let us share with each other a sign of Christ's peace. let us walk in love as Christ walked in love and gave himself an offering and a sacrifice for love.
The
up your hearts. Let us give thanks to the Lord our God. God of all power, ruler of the universe, you are worthy of glory and praise. At your command, all things came to be, the vast expanse of interstellar space, galaxies, suns, and the planets in their courses, and this fragile earth, our island home. From the primal elements, you brought forth the human race and blessed us with memory, reason, and skill. You made us the rulers of creation, but we turned against you and betrayed your trust, and we turned against one another. Again and again, you called us to return. Through prophets and sages, you revealed your righteous law, and in the fullness of time, you sent your only Son, born of a woman, to fulfill your law, to open for us the way of freedom and peace. And therefore, we praise you, joining with the heavenly chorus, with prophets, apostles, and martyrs, and with all those in every generation who have looked to you in hope to proclaim with them your glory in their unending hymn. And so, Heavenly Creator, we who have been redeemed by him and made a new people by water and the Spirit, now bring before you these gifts. Sanctify them by your Holy Spirit to be the body and blood of Jesus Christ our Lord. On the night that he was betrayed, he took bread. He said the blessing, broke the bread, gave it to his friends, and said, "Take, eat. This is my body, which is given for you. Do this for the remembrance of me." After supper, he took the cup of wine, gave thanks, and said, "Drink this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Whenever you drink it, do this for the remembrance of me." Remembering now his work of redemption and offering to you this sacrifice of thanksgiving, we celebrate his death and resurrection as we await the day of his coming. God of our holy and righteous ancestors, Redeemer and Mother of Israel, God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, open our eyes to see your hand at work in the world about us. Deliver us from the presumption of coming to this table for solace only and not for strength, for pardon only and not for renewal. Let the grace of this Holy Communion make us one body, one Spirit in Christ, that we may worthily serve the world in his name. Risen Lord, be known to us in the breaking of the bread. Accept these prayers and praises, O God, through Jesus Christ, our great high priest, to whom, with you and the Holy Spirit, your church gives honor, glory, and worship from generation to generation. Amen. As our Savior Christ has taught us, we are bold to pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Look, the body of Christ is broken for the life of the world. Here is Christ coming to us in bread and in wine, the gifts of God for the people of God, holy gifts for holy people. All are welcome to God's table. Let all partake of a spiritual communion through the blessing of the Holy Spirit, who unites us one to another in our community to Christ. Please rise as able in body or spirit for our post-communion prayer. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we thank you for feeding us with spiritual food of the most precious body and blood of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ, and for assuring us in these holy mysteries that we are living members of the body of your Son. Send us out to do what you have given us to do, to love, to the witnesses of Christ our Lord. To him, to you, and to the Holy Spirit, be honor and glory, now and forever. Amen. Live without fear. Your Creator has made you holy, has always protected you, and loves you always. Go in peace to follow the good road, and may God's blessing be with you always. In the name of the Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen.
In peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.